So the Philadelphia Eagles have lost a lot of free agents, I think it's fair to say, this free agency period. But there's one guy they made sure they did not let leave the building. That guy is James Bradberry. There's a couple guys. They also kept Darius Slay. There's several guys. But one of the guys they made sure they went out and kept was James Bradberry, who they gave a solid chunk of money to. 3-year, $38 million deal. That's over $12.5 million a year. $20 million of it is guaranteed. So it's definitely they're making sure that they keep him. They're paying him some money. But I want to talk about, why was he one of the guys that they made sure they kept? Because to me, it actually makes a lot of sense, but I want to get into the film and really discuss why he was the one that they said, no, we're gonna make sure we hang on to. I think one thing that is just worth noting before we even get into the film, I think people think Bradberry is older than he actually is. He's only 29 years old. While he will be 30 this next season, he still should be effective for, you would assume, the majority of his or the rest of his contract. I think that's probably the expectation. It's possible he could fall off towards the end of it, but you're expecting him to at least be good this next year and probably the next 2 years, really probably the next 3 years. Quarterbacks still do play well at 32, but that is right around the age where they start to take a step back. But also, listen, corner's kind of a very underpaid position, and it makes some sense to some degree. It's a very fluky position, so even if you played well your entire career, giving him some, paying a corner big money is still just always a risk due to the flukiness of the position. But it's such an important position that the fact that a big deal is $12.5 million a year kind of makes you feel like maybe teams are undervaluing. I mean, teams definitely undervalue corners, but maybe even more so than you might realize. And usually corner contracts are just a good idea in general, because when they work out, they really hit. Just see James Bradberry last year, for example. So, without further ado, though, let's just get into why I like James Bradberry so much as a player. So let's start off with this. This is the PFF chart of, they had him ranked as the 15th best free agent on the market, and he's had an up and down career, really. It's, again, kind of just the life of a corner in a lot of ways, where you tend to have some high highs and some low lows. Their projected contract was a 2-year, $24 million contract, so $12 million a year. And you look over towards the right side of the screen at the numbers there, and you can see why he, is getting attention. Where, 2020 he was great. Pro Bowler in 2020 with the Giants, but in last year, not the previous year, but the year before in 2021, definitely took a step back, which is why the Giants got rid of him. And when the Eagles signed him, it felt like kind of a flyer move of, hey, let's just bank on upside, and it worked out. He had a very good year with them. At times, great, overall good year with them. And you look at his PFF WAR over 0.4. That's a very good WAR stat. And also worth noting, he's 29, so he still is under 30, so definitely has some years left in him. Let's get into the film and talk about what he can do well, starting off with this play. This is definitely something he, I think, did very well for Philadelphia. I like him better in zone. I just do. I think he's better in that situation, and what he's going to do here is it's quarters coverage. He's the zone that I made in white. That's the one that he's supposed to cover. He's currently standing in that zone, and you see how there's a route that could get open right underneath his zone, right? Watch how when Cooper Rush on this play takes the snap, he looks over and there's a window to make this throw. There is. It's going to come down to how well does James Bradberry come back in towards the inside. How does he kind of rush back in? And he does a very good job typically at this stuff. Watch as he does step in front. He is able to knock the ball up, and it gets intercepted there. Great play by James Bradberry to pull that stuff off. These are the kind of things that Bradberry can do very well. Is, in zone coverage, it's almost a bit Richard Sherman-like. I'm not saying he's Richard Sherman, but just in the way that he can come back to the ball like that. It's very good. But also, let's go over here for a second. And again, the ball skills are really kind of what separates him, I think. You see that it's actually a tight end who he's going to be covering one-on-one here. But watch how when this play begins, tight end is going to eventually start running towards the middle of the field. So Bradberry, who is lined up closer towards the sideline, is in a bit of a predicament right here, as if this is a good throw from Cooper Rush, this is probably going to be a completion. And just spoiler alert, it's going to be a bit behind, which gives Bradberry a chance to get back into the play. But watch how when Rush eventually eventually does throw it, watch how Bradberry is able to just get over and knock the ball away because he had good ball skills. Yes, got a little bit of a break with not a perfect throw, but that happens in football. In fact, it rarely happens the other way. It rarely happens that there are perfect throws, right? Typically, it's not going to be perfect where you need it to be, and that's where a corner who has good ball skills can really take advantage. Like, this play is another great example, I think, of just that, where what's going to happen here is it's going to be man coverage, and you see, the route on the screen. That is the route that Bradberry is going to be covering here. And again, keep in mind the situation. There's a single safety deep. You also have a linebacker covering over the middle of the field, but other than that, there's no help. So, once you get toward the hash marks, there could be an opening, but really, at that point, the receiver's either going to be open or not. So it's essentially just a one-on-one matchup for Bradberry here. Look at how when this play begins. You see that at this point, receiver has the inside leverage. It's a bit of a dangerous situation. However, watch Bradberry be able to reach out. He's able to knock that ball away. Just really good stuff. Again, the way that he closes on the ball is definitely, it's a thing of beauty. And again, he doesn't get himself out of position too frequently. Sure, every now and then you'll see him get burned. Like, the one negative on his game is he isn't the fastest corner, and so sometimes it does happen, but it doesn't happen too often. And, it certainly didn't happen much last year. And I think a play like this is a good example of just showing how it doesn't happen too often, where it's going to be very similar to that first play I showed you. A lot of similarities between those two. It's a, same type of coverage of the quarters coverage, and you see that he's covering the same side of the field. It's the same route he's going up against. But the main thing I want to focus on here is showing why him maybe not being the fastest corner doesn't really matter if he's in a situation like this where there's two safeties deep on his play, meaning there's a safety on his side of the field who's just in the area, even if he's not necessarily covering fully deep. Look at how when this play begins, you see that at this point, if the receiver starts to go further down the field, at this point, Bradberry's in pretty good position to cover him, but also there'd be a safety who can come in and make the play. So Bradberry is able to solely focus on potentially jumping this route. So the throw does go in that direction, and Bradberry really could have had an interception there. It seemed like he committed too early to knocking the ball away. Could have been an interception, but either way, a very good play. And these are the kind of things Bradberry is capable of. So got to make sure he's in the right situation, but, he can still be good even in different situations. He has played well in other situations in the past, but that's definitely the best situation for him. And I think he's a good player. Again, not every year has been a great year for him, but, that's just the life of a corner, I think. He certainly had plenty of good years. At least that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And, of course, as always, thanks for watching.